tell you. So this should be working with my camera, but who knows? Technology is far beyond me. So, okay, welcome guys to the live stream, and sorry about the little bit of sound thing at the beginning. Hopefully I remember to edit that back out later. I don't know. Yeah, this microphone works with the camera. I'm using the good camera, but I'm not sure. Maybe I had a setting wrong. I don't know. It's above my pay grade. Anyways, welcome if this is your first time. We usually do little quick sprints so that you don't think about it. And in between, we answer your writing questions, whatever your problems you're having with your plot or your characters or whatever's going on. I'll answer those in between. Next Friday is National Authors Day, and I'm going to be doing the sprint earlier in the day because I have a meeting in the afternoon. I'll either be doing it from 10:30 to 11:30 or 11 to 12. I'll make that decision over the weekend and then post the time and set up the stream so you guys know. Because I have a meeting that's like right at 4 o'clock in Tampa, so I have to drive in there and can't be like driving and writing at the same time. I think that would be frowned upon by the police. Nice to see you, Brenda and Jean and Cheryl and Heather and Gayla and Miss Blogger and Silver Raleigh. Hopefully I didn't leave anybody out. And I know there's always people that don't necessarily talk in there, but I'm pleased to see you all here. So, and I did put I got a clue and put a little welcome message up there so that you guys remember. All right, let's share the writing prompt for today. And that is, what was the biggest risk your character ever took? Why did they do this? Meaning, what was their motivation? Because one of the things that I am noticing in the writers that I am doing one-on-one consults with this week is that they don't have enough motivation for their characters to do what they're doing. And so definitely think about the motivation for why your character would take a risk like that. And then what was the impact on them from this event? Because those are the things you absolutely have to know. Why? What was the impact? Why did they do it? What was the impact? And I see this all the time where people don't put a motivation in, the character just does something. And I'm like, but why is he doing that right now? Or why is she choosing to say that right now? So you definitely need to delve into the whys behind what your character is doing. And Ken Shoemaker, yeah, hi, nice to see you. And plot issues with timelines not matching between chapters. Yes. I have run into that, particularly when I have linked books, because I have to kind of condense this timeline and also tweak timelines to fit the publishing schedule, because sometimes they brought the books out sooner than I expected. Like it was going to be a year apart, and then there was one publisher that did my series 3 months apart, so I had to rewrite the book and change the plot because the timeline was now different. They wanted the books to be reflecting the time in like regular life, because they brought one out at Christmas, so they wanted me to have Christmas stuff in it and stuff like that. And so yeah, definitely keeping track of all that. I'm not super good at plots, keeping all of that stuff like in a notebook or anything. I do it when I have to. But I am very homework averse, which is why, the character master plan and even the questions in the workbook are pretty short, because I'm just not a big homework planning type of person. And why is it so hard to come up with good motivation, Felicity? Maybe because you don't know what is driving your character in the first place. I have a video coming out, I don't know when, actually, a couple weeks, because I've recorded a batch of them and I haven't released them all. But in one of them, I talk about what is most, and maybe it's the one that already came out, I don't know. It's about what is most important to your character, what those most important things are. And then you're going to take one away or threaten one or something like that. And that automatically creates really good motivation. Because if your character's grandmother is the most important thing in his life, and some kidnapper takes his grandma, then he has really strong motivation to go get grandma back. So you want to look at what is important to your character and how can you take it away. While we're on the topic of books, I just got my author copies of my January release. So they gave me both the large print and the regular print, and they're the same size but different thicknesses. So I've got it, and I was like, oh, I thought I already had that. But the large print is great, which I usually donate those to my mother-in-law's retirement community. And then this is the regular print. I love the new paperback size. They used to be smaller. I don't have one of the older ones here, but I love that. And that's one of my more recent suspense novels, which was super fun to write. Okay, so let's do our first sprint. We're going to do 15 minutes, and you guys can either choose to do the writing prompt or work on your own book. I'll play a little music. You guys write. If you have a question, drop it in the chat while we're doing the sprints, and I'll answer it when I come back. All right, so I will see you guys in 15 minutes. There we go, guys. That was quick. How'd you all do? Nice to see you here, Claudia. And let me see who else came. And Hapamo and Cece. So good to see you guys. Awesome to see you. And Miss Blogger, if you're two zombie characters or high schoolers, what jobs should they have? Well, any jobs that high schoolers would normally have. So, you know, like working in a grocery store, or I don't know, people don't do paper routes anymore. Or, you know, like babysitting or helping a neighbor, mowing lawns, whatever kids these days do. So there's not a whole lot they can do, because if they're in high school, they've got the full-time school thing to, you know, kind of getting in the way. So it would just be part-time little jobs like that. And overplotter, half a mo, yes, like on steroids. Trying to remember what it's like in the beginning when I just wrote and mostly invented on the hoof. Sprints are great for this. Yes, it's very easy to overplot. And some of the people that I work with on my consults, there's a lot of overplotting. Like they've got way too much going on. And the problem that I'm seeing is that they're not interweaving it enough. And I get that that's really hard, because you're taking sometimes two characters, two external plots, two internal plots, sometimes a genre plot as well. And if you're writing like something like romantic inspirational romance, you've got a whole other plot with the inspirational part. You've got to weave all that together into one, and it can be tough. And Claudia, yes, you should be able to hear now. I think so. It was just the very beginning that it was like there. Nice to see you, Lottie. And Ken talks about the biggest risk of going into a fire is a rope rescue. Go over the side of a 15-story building to rescue somebody from a ledge with a fire billowing from apartment windows. Yes, that sounds pretty scary. And for the character, if his life is in the hand of his teammates and he's got some issues with a couple of those teammates, kind of like in, what was that movie, Backdraft, then you might be nervous about putting your life in those hands. And yes, Gayla, fast food and lifeguarding. Lifeguarding is always a great little thing. I know that I live in Florida, and here they're always looking for lifeguards, because there's never enough. We have obviously lots of beachfront here on the Gulf Coast, so there's always a need for more lifeguards. And of course at the school, at the public pools and things like that too. So yeah, just kind of Google jobs a high schooler could have if you're writing it in 2024, and you'll come up with lots of options. Yeah, it's a boring but important job to be a lifeguard for sure. All right, did anybody try the prompt? Because I love this thing with risks, and I didn't. I'm working on a new story that I started, because that's the one that I've been talking about with my husband, and he's like, how far have you got on it? So for like a month or so, I think I'm just going to play with it and see what happens with it, because I'm not on deadline. Woohoo, I love that when I'm not on deadline. And it gives me something fun to look forward to on Fridays. So I didn't do it for that, because I'm so early in this story. I don't know my character well enough yet. I do have a video coming up where I talk about sort of my process for revision. And I actually have a 3-part series on revision coming up. And I talk about how I go through the first third and just kind of let the characters do what they're going to do, and then go back and sort of figure out a plot, because I want to see who these people are. I have a what if scenario that I start with, and then I just write. And Brenda, it's like a supernatural thriller. So I think right now that's the plan with it. And it's fun to do something else, because I do love doing other genres, and I've written so many of women's fiction and romance that I'm really done with it. And Hafamo, really trying to double down on finding that one single active, actionable external goal. It really carries you on. Yes. And again, I come back to that. What is the most important thing to my character, and how can I take it away or threaten it? Because that creates a really big goal without having to work too hard. KP, the biggest risk for one of my characters was to join the group of conspirators to prevent the emperor from being murdered. That sounds pretty cool. Yes, to do that would be pretty risky, particularly if they find out that you're not there to kill the emperor and you're there to like foil their plot. That would be very risky. I do love those kind of undercover sort of stories. All right, let's take another 15 minutes and I'll put the prompt back up and we'll get some more music and we'll go for another 15 minutes. Let me know how you guys do and I will see you soon. There we go, guys. That was a quick 15 minutes. And Val, I missed your little comment there. You wrote part of a scene based on your character's biggest physical risk. I love that. And welcome to the live stream. I saw it just as I clicked off to go back to the music. And thank you, Brenda. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. Let's scroll down and see what other comments we had. Can their jobs be a player and a football player and a cheerleader for their jobs? Miss Blogger asked. Those aren't jobs that you'd get paid for, but that can be what they're doing. I mean, really, for kids when they're in school, their main job is getting through school and getting good grades so they can go to college or get a decent job. So I thought you were just asking like as a side thing. Whatever you give them, it has to be important to the plot. You don't just make them the cheerleader and then they never go to cheer practice and that never becomes part of the plot. Whatever you make your characters as a job, try to make it have something to do with the plot, or at least something that affects the character. Like, an accountant is the person I'm writing right now in another chapter is an accountant. So he's very much a numbers guy, and he gets analysis paralysis because he likes to see all the facts and figures. So that is going to affect the plot because his need for more information will make him hesitate when he shouldn't. So that's what I mean about their jobs should definitely be part of the plot. And with kids in high school, you don't have a lot of time because 8 hours of their day is taken up with school. So if they're going to have other things like a part-time job or a sport after school, then it's going to have to be part of the plot because otherwise it will take up too much space on the page. And KP, he was abroad half his life, felt departed from his home, and the impact of what he was kept in prison for 5 years because the conspirators took over the palace and turned the import into a fruit. So sounds pretty interesting. And so for Cheryl, her character taking a risk was agreeing to go with Caulfield to escape her life of drudge, but that put her in severe danger. Yes, and I do like that. Claudia's main character is a late bloomer and has been overly protected, so her biggest risk was to leave home and travel to an unknown place. And yeah, I think that's really cool because you can have the character really step outside of their comfort zone there. Nice to see you, Boris. And Silver Alley, 197 words, right? It does go by so fast. I was like, 15 minutes already and 198. Good job, Hapamo. And Boris' character was a country and it had a communist revolution. The biggest threat was a civil war killing many people and being a failure revolution. Well, I'm not sure how a country can be a character, but maybe you're making that work. So, okay. I really do like having these little writing prompts because it does make me think too about things that I can do with my characters. And if you didn't already see it, I just had, because the Olympics have, I think, kind of kept everybody from watching YouTube this week. I have not been watching YouTube as much. I noticed a couple of the channels that I usually am on and watch every day, the viewership has been down. But I did do a video about bad writing advice, because I think it's really important that you think about where you're getting your writing advice from. I'm pleased that all of you are here, but for sure, I really appreciate it a lot. And when you're listening to somebody, you want to look at, is this somebody whose career I'd like to emulate? Is this somebody whose techniques I'd like to emulate? Do they know what they're doing? Because there are people on YouTube that are giving writing advice that have never finished a book. I do not know how you can teach somebody to do something you have never done yourself, literally never done. And writing a book is such a different skill set. It's different than teaching somebody how to do something you can learn from like reading a manual. You have to write a book and finish another one and another one and another one to figure out how to actually write a book. I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years and teaching has really taught me to kind of, structure all of what I do so that I can explain it to you guys. But I have definitely put in the blood, sweat, and tears to be here. And so I wanted you guys to see how bad writing advice can really hinder your career. Because for me, I think if I'd had somebody out there that had experience that was teaching me back when I was writing 10 books in 8 years that didn't sell, I would have had a much shorter writing journey. It would have made a big difference. And Claudia's main character's motivation was to make a name for herself and follow in her father's footsteps. But there was also a love, desire, motivation. Yes. But you also want to have an external motivation. So maybe to take this risk so that she could go take a bigger risk and get her dream job or whatever it is. You want to have something that is big enough that it will carry an entire book. So just leaving home and going to another place wouldn't necessarily carry an entire book because there's not a lot of steps involved. Like you book the plane ticket, you pack your bag, you get on the plane. But if there's something else that happens over there or something else that she's trying to get to, some mystery she's trying to solve, then you've got a bigger plot there. And the impact was life-changing and challenging, and it's the pivot to the entire story until she has to make a couple of other decisions. Hey, thanks, Wandering One Media. Nice to see you here. And I think that, yes, when you take a risk and things go poorly, that can really impact your character's decisions to take risks later. Because, you know, you kind of learn from touching the hot stove that maybe you shouldn't touch the hot stove again. And Gayla, yes, I think we've all had bad writing advice in the past. I mean, you are so hungry when you first start out for information and to figure out this puzzle, because it really is this like puzzle without a picture on it. I don't know if you guys have ever done one of those. I think that is beyond my own level of patience. But, you know, a puzzle without a picture on it, you don't know where to put next or where to go. And until you actually get some really good concrete advice and maybe some hands-on editing, it's very hard to know how to structure it all. It's just not something that we all are just born with, this innate knowledge of how books go together. We know how they work. We know the structure basically just from reading and being exposed to story all our lives, but actually interweaving all of those plots and characters and creating people that come alive on the page and creating emotional depth requires a bigger skill set. And you can't just learn that from somebody that has never done it, frankly. So that's my opinion. I could be totally wrong. I mean, maybe there's somebody out there that has never written a book that can tell you how to write emotional depth, but I'm not sure. The characters in Boris's book are the people in it. Yes, because you definitely want them to be humans so that the readers can relate to them. Some leading the revolution, some being against it. And I do like that. I like that built-in conflict of people, especially in their home place, because some of them are going to want to see change, but then that will require sacrifice, or maybe there is a big cost to it. There's a lot of movies and books out there that are about that. And yay, Cece, I love that you love the prompt today. And Val, interweaving is really, really hard. It is. I'm going to have to figure out how I can do a video on that, on teaching you guys how to do that. Because the scene video really does do it, the masterclass on scenes. I don't know if you guys have seen that or not, but that I tear apart an entire scene from word to word and tell you why every single word is there and show you how I blended in everything that goes into the scene. Goal, motivation, conflict, and the characters' emotional issues, and it's a romance, so there's a romantic thread in there as well. And then also what I showed and what I didn't, and why I showed certain things, and how I used things in the scene to increase the emotion. So yes, I know it's like a 45-minute video, but it really is just tearing apart an entire scene so you can see visually exactly how it all goes together. Half a Mo, my main character's biggest risk was a path he didn't take. Yes, I do love that. His motivation for that was to save someone, which backfired. I love the whole, you know, the path you didn't take. That is part of the plot of Dark Matter, which is an Apple TV series based on a book, and I totally forgot the author's name. But that really talks about, like, what if you could live the life that you never did, which is cool. And thank you, Brenda. I'm so glad that the scene deconstruction was so helpful. That's a big word for a Friday. And this blogger, can my two main characters help each other achieve, or should they do it by themselves? They can absolutely help each other, but they also have to have a measure of success and growth on their own. They absolutely have to have it, because nobody likes the character where everybody does something for them and solves it for them, because you just know that's not going to end well later in life if somebody else does everything for you and takes the risks for you. So they can help each other, but the main characters definitely need to each have their own growth moment. And yes, Brenda, Blake Crouch, Dark Matter was fabulous. I hope they're going to do a second season. It didn't really seem like they would. Boris, when I wrote my first book, so the hardest thing to do was like write a book that was actually good. I thought it was great, and I remember actually arguing with somebody that, because like just a critique partner, she wasn't published either. She had a degree or something, and so I thought she would be really helpful to me, and arguing with her about what I wrote, and it was such a bad book. But here is the video about my very first 10 books in 8 years that I wrote and why they were so bad. I have a couple of other videos where I analyze what was so bad about them. I knew nothing. Like, I had taken a couple courses. I had that very useless degree in English. I must say, my degree in English has been completely useless in writing commercial fiction because my degree studied Joyce and Dickens and Hawthorne and, all of these much older authors who were not writing for the commercial market at that moment in time. And so to learn how to write fiction that really grabbed readers at that particular moment in time when I started, because I sold my first book, I think in 98, 97. So 8 years before that, when I started to write a book that was really exciting for people then, was a big learning curve for me. I really had to do a lot of things. And that scene class that I posted just a little while ago, I show you guys my highlighter method of learning to plot. And I have to say that that was the last key for me that taught me everything that I was missing and everything that I needed to do. When I had a visual roadmap, I really understood it all of a sudden. And all of these books that I'd written were crap. I took a few pages from one of them and it became another book. And I sold book number 8, I believe was the one that I sold. It's been a while, so I've forgotten a lot of it. And Cheryl's degree is in art, which has nothing whatsoever to do with writing and is not conducive to getting a job. Yet neither is an English degree, frankly. It wasn't really a journalism degree because I didn't want to be a journalist anymore. I didn't enjoy being a journalist. So it was never really a very beneficial degree, I have to say. And half of those study medieval literature. Yeah, still pretty useless, but really interesting topics, right? Like, I did have fun in college learning a lot of new authors that were new to me and really diving deep into their books, but it taught me literally nothing about how to write commercial fiction, much less run a business as a writer. The video coming out on Monday is how I have made money as a writer for like 98% of my life. I've had a couple of part-time jobs, and otherwise I've always made money as a writer. And so it's not like, you just instantly make a ton of money off the books that are out. Anybody that knows publishing knows that I'm not sitting on a yacht right now based on what I'm selling from my books because the market is so saturated. So I was smart about developing other ways of making money. And Jean, this may sound like a silly question, but since I'm still what's considered a novice writer, is it best to do a few coaching calls or would you recommend me going into your master's group? That is actually a great question. And Val, yes, thank you, full marks for persistent. So if you're a really new writer and you're debating between a one-on-one consult with me or the masterminds, I think it's what suits your schedule the best and how quickly you want to kind of finish the book. So the people that have done the one-on-one consults, most of them have a finished book and we're going through what they're doing wrong, essentially, because they're frustrated. They haven't quite figured out why they're not selling this book to New York or why it's getting bad reviews on Amazon. And so I'll go through and tell them what they're doing wrong. I've also used the one-on-one consults to plot books with people. You use the hour however you want to use it. As for the masterminds, the great thing about the masterminds is that you have your own little community on my circle page. It's behind a wall so that only the people in your mastermind are in that group. And so the mastermind people will bounce ideas off each other. Like they'll, share a new ending to a scene and they'll get feedback from each other. And you get to learn a lot from watching what I tell other people. So because the groups are small, there's only like 5 people getting feedback on that evening. And so you're seeing what everybody else is doing and how I'm telling them to fix it. So I think personally, as a newer writer, you learn more from the masterminds than the consults. Once you kind of understand basic book structure and you're kind of going along and getting frustrated by your journey and need somebody to help redirect you on the right path, a consult's a really good deal. And Boris, thank you. Yeah, I've published 85 books in 24 countries. Actually, I think now 87. I stopped counting after 85, and I tell you guys that all the time because it's a lot to keep track of. I do have a lot coming out. Like this came out this year. I had 2 other books come out this year. This is coming out in January, and I just don't keep track anymore. And thank you, Heather. And I've had some really hard knocks experience for sure. I have been there with all of you with the rejections and the books that didn't sell. I'm not sure if I shared this story in one of my videos, but I had a book come out on 9/11. And I sold nothing for a full quarter. Actually, that story is in the Monday video. It came out on 9/11. And of course, the whole country was devastated. The whole world was. And so I didn't sell anything for 3 months. And that was when I realized I need to start this as a treat this as a business because I need income for those 3 months that the book wasn't selling. And half a mo, I make a full-time living from writing. I actually have people on my staff. So I have a payroll, I have assistants, and I have assistant, a cover designer, and a junior editor. Those people are on my payroll. So I'm paying me and them. You absolutely can, but you've got to be open to writing more than just novels, because making money on just novels is very hard, because the fiction industry is so mercurial. Vampires will be in today, and then tomorrow it's zombies, and then the next day it's dragons, and then all of a sudden Supernatural's over and they're, into, I don't know, some other kind of thing. So you never know what is going to happen with the industry. I have found that doing other types of writing has kept a steady income stream, and I've balanced it with making sure I always have time for the fiction. And then I can breathe. I'm not so worried about a book selling, because one of the things I found, and I did not put this in the video, but I probably should have, I will in a future one. One of the things that I found with my career was that when I was depending solely on the fiction for money, I rushed books out too quickly to get to editors and agents to try to make that sale. And that was part of the problem with those 10 books in 8 years. I was trying really hard to sell that first book, and I was rushing so hard. 10 books in 8 years is a book every 9 months. And I had a lot of starts in there that I didn't finish. So I probably started another 20 books that I never finished. And so I sent out a bunch of books that were not ready. And that hurt me. I think it set me back a lot. And I didn't take the time to really invest in writing an amazing book. Now that I have the regular steady income, I can take as much time as I need to with the book to make sure that it's really perfect. And even when I release something like the workbook, I can take the time to put into it because I'm not worried about making the money on Amazon from the workbook. So when you have another stream, it really does help you quite a bit. And thank you guys. Hey, Tim, nice to see you here. All right, so we are at 5 o'clock. I talked too much. We didn't get a third sprint. And so I have to end for the day because I don't have enough time. But we will, like I said, next week we will either do 10:30 to 11:30. I have to check on another meeting that I have that day, or 11 to 12 on next Friday for National Authors Day. And bring whatever favorite book of yours or list, like I have a whole list that you have that you want to talk about, because it's really cool to find new authors. Somebody in my mastermind recommended an author to me, and that book is the next one that I'm going to be reading. So I'm excited to start that. And so, yeah, National Authors Day, we might as well talk about some amazing authors as we become authors ourselves. Like a little bit of wisdom at the end of a Friday. And thank you, Gayla. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate it so much. And I am going to try to make a little bit more time on these as we go along, because I know that everybody really wants to do more sprinting. It's hard. I also want to answer everybody's questions. So I hope you have a great weekend. And I hope that everybody has lots of writing and everything else. So have a great weekend. Look for that video on Monday. And if you didn't watch the masterclass yet, definitely watch that. And especially if you're writing a romance, it delves into a lot about how to construct a romance. See you guys. Have a great day. I'll talk to you later.